Dr. Worthing, so we don't have an interchangeable biosimilar on the market yet, but how would the designation of interchangeability affect you as a provider in your clinical prescribing practices?
Great question. Molly's right. Doctors and patients have been waiting, I think, for the interchangeability guidance. I think it would help confidence as a rheumatologist and somebody who writes prescriptions for biologics. There's two general situations in which a doctor might write a prescription for a biologic. That's for a patient who hasn't taken the drug yet and they're new to the drug. And then there's the situation where we're writing a prescription for somebody who's already been on the reference product, say, for some time and might have been doing well, and we're writing a prescription for the biosimilar for them to change over and move. I think in the first instance, we're getting a really good amount of confidence in the FDA pathway, which shows that the structure and function and anticipated usefulness, safety, and efficacy of biosimilars are biosimilar to their reference products. And to me, that kind of matches up with the first clinical situation where I'm prescribing a biosimilar to a patient who's not taking a drug yet. Where the interchangeability pathway comes in, I think, in boosting confidence is in that second situation where a patient might be doing well on a drug, and both the doctor and the patient are interested in knowing if a biosimilar, which might be cheaper or they might have easier access to it, if that's going to work the same way, not cause any more side effects, still keep their disease under control. And that's where I think the pathway that the FDA has drafted, which we saw this winter, really helps boost confidence. The pathway suggests clinical trial design where manufacturers start patients all on the biologic reference product and then switch 3 times to the biosimilar, back to the reference product, and then back to the biosimilar, and confirm that they're just as safe and effective. I think that that'll help in that situation where we can be confident telling the patient this drug that might seem new to you, but it's going to work just as well as the drug you've been taking.
So that actually ties a little bit into a follow-up question I was thinking of. So as you're currently comfortable with the pathway, you're currently comfortable with a patient, as you're saying, kind of a new patient, a new start with the FDA guidance. So this is really just that switch patient, your continuing patient thinking about switching the therapy. But what evidence are you currently relying on and looking at products that have been approved to make sure that you're comfortable prescribing them?
Right now, we're looking at 2 different kinds of evidence mainly. One is looking, it's called analytical data. That's data in the test tube and data about the molecule and how it works, that the mechanism of action works the same way as the reference product. And then the second kind of data is clinical trial data. So that includes putting the drug into people who have the disease that the drug is applying for indication, and making sure that it works just as well and has as few safety signals as the reference product. So right now we're looking at those 2 kinds of data and judging that these biosimilars work just as well as the reference product.
Can I ask a question, Angus, because I'm kind of curious about this. You know, as a first designated interchangeable that gets in the market, do you think this is going to be a tipping point where, because biosimilar uptake has been a little bit slower than anticipated, that more physicians will be more likely to prescribe biosimilars? Or do you think that they're going to start saying, well, biosimilars are somewhat inferior to interchangeables and just ignore them because they don't have the switching studies, they don't have the presentation studies and the FDA's blessing?
Great question, Hakoon. I think that depends on a lot of variables. One is how good the data is for that interchangeable. We want to see the data from clinical trials right in the FDA package insert. We want to know about them. All doctors, and when they're talking to their patients, should learn about the drug and how well it works. I think if that happens, and then on the payer side, people who are paying for the drugs, insurance companies, pharmacy benefits managers, the government, if they also see the value of the interchangeable drug, I think that we'll get good market uptake. You were referencing how the biosimilars market hasn't taken on as quickly as hoped. I think we're all interested in, from providers and patients' perspective, getting the prices down, and that's all we're talking about today with biosimilars, is trying to reduce the prices. And really that's probably going to hinge on market uptake and getting more biosimilars into the market.
Yeah, and I would totally agree, Dr. Worthing. You know, coming from a manufacturer perspective, I think it's very important that all the stakeholders understand that a biosimilar that's quote unquote just a biosimilar is not less safe or less quality. It's quite the opposite, actually. I think the bar for biosimilarity is high, to Dr. Worthing's point around the analytics in particular. But I think it's going to be beholden for all stakeholders to understand that, in fact, a product with just a biosimilarity designation isn't less anything. It's different. If you pursue interchangeability, the purpose of that is different. And therefore, I think to Dr. Worthing's point, manufacturers will look at product by product and make that decision, which is a very significant investment. As Dr. Worthing mentioned, it's a large-scale clinical trial. And because of the number of switches, it requires a lot of time. And therefore, it's not an overnight proposition. So, I think that I think we'll see some molecules in some markets that interchangeability is very important. And I think we'll see other areas where it's less important, either because of how the product is given to the patient or the disease area. If it's an acute use in oncology, I think you'll see things look very different from an interchangeability standpoint versus a chronic use agent where a patient might be on it for years or decades.